What if I told you the United States has been fighting a war for decades? One that never made headlines, never had a clear enemy, and never officially ended. No declarations, no victory speeches, no history lessons in school. And yet, this war has shaped your world more than most of the conflicts you've actually heard about. Because this wasn't a war fought with tanks and missiles. It was fought in silence, in shadows, and sometimes even inside the minds of its own people.
Welcome to AM Story Archives.
Some stories were never meant to be found. Some truths were buried for a reason.
The story begins not on a battlefield, but in fear. The year was 1947. World War II had just ended, but instead of peace, a new kind of tension took hold. The United States and the Soviet Union stood on opposite sides of a growing divide. There were no gunshots yet, but something far more dangerous was brewing. Paranoia. Both sides believed the other was planning something catastrophic. Nuclear weapons had changed everything. One mistake could mean the end of millions. But here's where things took a darker turn. The U.S. government realized something chilling. The next war wouldn't just be fought with bombs. It would be fought with information, with influence, with control over what people believe. And so, quietly, without public knowledge, a new kind of war began, a hidden war. In the early 1950s, the United States launched a series of secret programs designed to understand and control the human mind. One of these programs would later become infamous, but at the time, almost no one knew it existed. Its goal? To find out if a human being could be manipulated, broken, and rebuilt. Scientists, psychologists, and intelligence officers worked together under strict secrecy. They weren't just studying behavior, they were experimenting with it. In some cases, they tested drugs on unwitting subjects, people who had no idea they were part of an experiment. In other cases, they used extreme interrogation techniques, trying to push the human mind to its limits. All of this justified by one fear. What if our enemies figure this out first? That fear became the fuel for everything that followed. But this hidden war didn't stay inside laboratories. It moved outward into media, culture, and everyday life. During the Cold War, the U.S. didn't just want to defeat its enemy militarily, it wanted to win ideologically. That meant influencing how people thought, not just in America, but around the world. Films, radio broadcasts, newspapers, even art became tools. Messages were carefully crafted, stories were shaped, certain narratives were promoted, while others quietly disappeared. This wasn't always obvious. In fact, it was designed not to be. Because the most powerful form of control is the one you don't notice. Meanwhile, intelligence agencies were expanding their reach. Operations were carried out in foreign countries, sometimes to prevent the spread of rival ideologies, sometimes to install governments more aligned with U.S. interests. But these operations rarely made the news. They were classified, hidden, denied, and often the consequences were felt far away from American soil, in places most Americans would never hear about. By the 1970s, cracks began to show.
Investigations revealed that some of these secret programs had gone too far, way too far. There were reports of illegal surveillance on U.S. citizens, experiments conducted without consent, actions that blurred the line between national security and ethical violation. The public was shocked. But here's the unsettling part. That wasn't the end of the hidden war. It was just the moment it became slightly visible. Because while some programs were shut down, others evolved. They adapted. They became more sophisticated, less obvious, more integrated into the fabric of society. Fast forward to the digital age, the battlefield changed again. Now, the war wasn't just about controlling information, it was about controlling attention. Social media platforms became the new front lines. Algorithms decided what people saw, what they believed, what they argued about, and what they ignored. The goal wasn't always to convince people of one truth. Sometimes it was simply to create confusion, because a divided population is easier to influence, easier to guide, easier to control. And it wasn't just governments anymore. Private companies, data analysts, and foreign actors all became part of the equation. Data became the most valuable weapon. Every click, every search, every like, it all fed into systems designed to predict and sometimes influence human behavior. This wasn't science fiction. It was happening in real time. The hidden war had entered a new phase, one where the lines between enemy and ally, truth and manipulation, became increasingly blurred. But here's the question no one likes to ask. If a war is being fought over your thoughts, your beliefs, your perception of reality, how would you even know? Because unlike traditional wars, this one doesn't have a clear beginning or end. There's no moment where it officially started, and no moment where it will clearly end. Instead, it continues quietly, every day, in the information you consume, in the opinions you form, in the stories you believe. And maybe the most unsettling part of all is that you don't have to be a soldier to be part of it. Because in this hidden war, everyone is, whether they realize it or not.